very welcome to the Shine Festival. I'm talking to Louise Byrne. She is a multimedia journalist and currently the Primetime anchor on RTE as well. Louise, thank you so much for taking part in our Shine Festival, which is all about empowering young girls all over the country. You're very welcome.
Thank you. I'm really, really happy to be asked. And I'm
Um,
really disappointed that I can't see everyone in real life, because I've
I
seen
know.
pictures of what's happened in previous years, and it looks like it'd have been a really, really nice day. So I'm disappointed that it's all remote, but better than nothing, right?
Exactly. And it's all, as we said, it's all about empowering young girls who are experiencing life as a 14-year-old onwards in a very different way than we did when we were 14. What were you like as a 14-year-old?
I was the 14-year-old who sort of did all the extracurricular stuff,
Okay.
and was really lucky that there was lots of it to do. And so I suppose school for me, the most interesting part of school was when we got to go and play basketball matches, or when you got to go to the music room and play. Um, so I loved all of that, but I was probably also quite shy in lots of ways, and
Hmm.
quite, I don't think I was particularly confident. I don't think that's unusual, but I definitely think that that's something that maybe you kind of get with a bit of age. So yeah, I was busy and I was into everything, but I was probably still quite shy and quite unsure about who I was, So it's a difficult time. It can be quite a difficult time. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you studied business and politics at Trinity. Was journalism always something that you thought you'd like to get into?
I actually didn't realize it was as much as then I found uh, a copybook from primary school, and obviously part of it was some sort of exercise, and I'd written down on it, when I grow up I want to be a journalist. So I guess when I was 11 and 12 I did. I was that kid who just used to torment my parents asking questions, and my mum says that when I finally got to go to school, she was really relieved, because the endless questions about why is the sky blue and how does rain fall, that she could say, you should ask your teacher that. So she was delighted that off I went to school where I could torment the teachers with my endless questions. But I guess maybe that's sort of an indication of the career that I was going to go into, because that's what we do. We ask questions and we listen to the answers, and then we ask more questions.
Mhm.
So I think that's, did I always want to be a journalist? I probably did, actually. I probably didn't realize as much um, growing up through school, but then when I went to university, I did my transition year work experience in a radio station, and one of the days we spent was in the newsroom. And I remember not really realizing that radio news was a thing until we got to spend an afternoon in the newsroom. And this makes me sound like a dinosaur, but this was when the news came via the fax machine. So the fax machine
Okay.
would ring, and it would be the Garda statement about, whatever was being investigated. But this was just, I thought, the most amazing thing ever, that the news came through the fax machine, and then you went on the radio and you read the news to people. So I think I was kind of sold on broadcast journalism then.
I think that's so great because I never did transition year, and I always feel that a lot of people who did transition year kind of realize what's for them from trying lots of stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. But it was a
mm,
bit of a reality check as well, because I did my second week in a newspaper, a
okay.
local newspaper, and they sent me out to cover. I actually can't remember. It was a launch of something, and they said, "You write that up now." And I wrote it up, and I was delighted with myself. And I finished the week, and the paper was published on the Tuesday after, and I read it from cover to cover, and there was no sign of it.
Oh,
So it was a okay. This is hard. Like, obviously, what I wrote wasn't good enough for the local paper, but like, so it was. I think that was actually quite important
mm,
to know that this is a difficult thing to do,
yeah, this is
as
a
well.
journey.
Maybe
Mm.
radio is better or television is better for me than print. Again, that might have been an early an early lesson in my print capabilities.
And was it business and politics that you were definitely going to do? Did you ever consider doing pure journalism in college or?
I did, and this is a, a very basic reason why I didn't. When I was considering it, the main course at the time was in DCU, and that would have
Hmm.
just been quite far away from my house. So I was also really interested in politics and business and the courses that we did in BES in Trinity, because that it's sort of like a broad arts degree. When you go in first year, you do, I think, 5 or 6 different subjects like sociology and politics. And I really liked the sound of that. So it was kind of, well, pure journalism is really far away from my house, almost to the point of not really being doable, because it wasn't really doable to move out. And I'm also really interested in all these other things. So I was, and I, if anyone is thinking about journalism, I mean, my advice is that those two options are, they are both options. You don't need to study pure journalism at all. In fact, it can be very helpful to have studied other things and to bring that into journalism. And again, I was really lucky when I was in college. I got a part-time job when I was in 3rd year, 4th year in Today FM as a researcher on their business show.
Great.
So that was by the end of college, I wasn't really so fussed about the college because I had this part-time job. I sort of had an idea, now this is what I want to do. So again, it was very lucky, and I know that people those opportunities aren't aren't there as much these days, which is a real shame. But so yeah, so if you're interested in journalism, there are 2 ways to do it. So it doesn't have to be a journalism course. In fact, there's a lot to be said for doing studying something that you might end up reporting on, which is exactly what would happen to me.
Yeah, and look at you now, currently anchoring Primetime, which might seem like such an instantaneous thing that's happened, but it's been a long road of 8 years in RTE. What have you been doing up until this time?
Yeah, so I would have Exactly. So I would have started out when I finished the degree, then I said I better get a full-time job out of this. Let's see if we can do that. And again, times are different. It's a lot harder now, but there were more opportunities in local radio then. So I went down, I was lucky enough to get a job in Midlands Radio, I went down and lived in Tullamore for a year and came back and worked in local radio in Dublin. And then took a bit of a leap of faith, and RTE were doing interviews. And they were sort of hiring in batches. They were sort of creating a panel, if you like. And so I did the interviews and I was very excited, but I wasn't offered a job. And a friend of mine who was working in the newsroom said, there are lots of opportunities for freelance work. There's work going. And so I took a bit of a leap of faith and left the full-time job that I had and said, I'm free for work. And they gave me a contract a couple of days later.
Great.
So it took a bit of bravery to kind of say, no, this is where I want to be. I'll take what I get for now. And as it happened, it worked out really well. So I would have started in the newsroom then and would have spent a couple of years on Morning Ireland, which is the radio program your parents might have on in the car when you're driving to school between 7 and 9 in the morning, and that's brilliant. And I love radio, really, really love it. I would have played a lot of music, so radio to me kind of fires some of the neurons, in the same neurons I have in my brain when I play guitar. And then sort of latterly in the last couple of years, I would have moved over to television, done some work with the TV news bulletins, and then 2 years ago joined Primetime. And yeah, now at the moment I'm sort of standing in as a presenter. There's a few of us doing that and have had a chance to do that for the last couple of months. So it's been super. It's been a good opportunity. It's been busy. This is a horrible time. It's a horrible time for everybody, but it's a time I think that news and current affairs is really important, because people want to know that the right decisions are being made, and for the right reasons. And so our job is to try and to hold people to account, to hold the people who make decisions to account, and to interrogate whether is that the right decision, have you thought of this, and to hear from other people saying, we don't think this has been thought of, so that's what we do at the moment, and I love it. I love doing it.
And I have to say, you have a lovely and yet forceful way of interviewing. I'm thinking of your Norma Foley interview, for example. You're incredibly respectful and your tone is lovely, but you really get your point across. Is that something that came at time, or something that you feel you had from the start?
Well, I don't know is the answer to it, but I know it's important, because you will hear people say that they don't like to feel like people who are being interviewed are being harangued.
Needled.
The viewers and listeners want things to be fair. You know, they want the questions asked, but nobody wants to feel like that there's that it hasn't been fair. You know, so we have to walk that line and make sure that that's what we're doing. At the same time, though, you know, these are people who have positions of power. There's a reason they're in the chair answering the questions. There's a reason people are on their couch watching. That night in particular, that was a big night. I think it was the night that the schools had been due to open.
Mm-hmm.
A decision had been made. The schools are going to open. This was back in January, so last month, although it feels like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So last month the schools are going to open, and then out of nowhere, then one of the unions pulled out, and all of a sudden that was up in the air. So so we had the minister there, and you know, it was my job to ask her what had happened and to ask her what she was going to do about it and to ask her what had gone wrong. So, and that's a huge privilege to get to do that, because people wanted to know, and it was so important. I mean, everyone watching this, that was the difference between you getting to go to school on Monday and not get to go to school on Monday. These are people who make very important decisions that affect everybody. So, you know, they have a job to do, and part of their job is being accountable for the decisions they make. And so my job is to try and be part of that accountability, you know. But yeah, you can't be rolling someone over the coals. It's not fair, and it's not good telly. It's not, no one, it's important to be that tone is there. Yeah, for sure.
And I think now more than ever, like you were saying earlier, that younger people are very interested in the news, and be it the election that feels like, again, was about 6 years ago, but was only about a year ago, and then on to COVID. Are you conscious of younger people as well, and maybe that they're, you know, not understanding some of the terms and the throwaway political jargon when you're
Yeah.
interviewing?
And actually, that's one of the reasons, again, I'm really disappointed that this is, you know, that I'm not in a room with some teenage girls, so I can listen, because that is our job, is to listen, and it's harder to listen when we can't see people, very many people in person. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
100%, and we are really conscious of that, and we try and kind of, where we can, give a voice to, you know, whoever we're talking about. So if we're talking about schools, we're not just talking about teachers or the Minister for Education, we're talking about students as well. So in fact, I think last week we had an item where Miriam O'Callaghan, who also presents Primetime, would have done a Zoom interview with 2 or 3 Leaving Cert students to try and hear what they were thinking about the Leaving Cert, you know. So are we perfect at it? Absolutely not. Do we have our own biases because we're not teenagers? Yeah. And I don't have teenage kids at the moment. My children are 5. I have twins. They can act like teenagers
I hear you.
sometimes. And that's no disrespect to teenagers. But so yeah, we have to listen, and we always try to listen. And yeah, I'd love to learn how we can listen better, and I'd love to be able to understand that, because for you're dead right, like that it's a voice that we sometimes don't hear enough of.
Definitely. You've spoken very openly about the need to have honest conversations about diversity, particularly on screen. Have you seen changes in diversity on screen in Ireland?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I think we have. When I compare what was on the telly, who was on the telly when I was a teenager, I don't remember watching telly and thinking, I'm like any of those people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe as a teenager, I was like, who am I? And that's okay. I think that's okay to say that, you know, who you are when you're 14 um, isn't maybe who you are forever. What you're feeling or what you're thinking is, but what you're feeling and thinking is okay. So when I was a teenager, you know, I would have been kind of thinking about, you know, being gay, am I gay? And maybe there wasn't really much on the telly at all, particularly as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So like, uh, so I think it is important to just be okay with saying, this is who I am. My partner is a woman and we have children, and that's absolutely grand. And also that's just a small part of me. And
Exactly.
that's true, and that's okay. But I think it is important. I mean, like if it would have helped me, I think. And so you know, I think it's important to not be in any way, you know, to be very open about that,
Mm.
because it is who I am. We have a great life. I'm really happy, and that's and all those worries that maybe I had when I was a teenager, I would have worried a lot. That actually it's fine. It was absolutely fine. And now I have 2 5-year-olds driving us mad, and all those great things. So yeah, I mean, has diversity improved on television? It has, for sure. I'd love to see more diversity in terms of race on Irish television. I think that's something that we can do better on, because I think Ireland is changing, has changed a lot. So that's something I'd really like to see as well, because again, if I'm a 14-year-old Black girl, am I looking at someone like me on the telly? Probably not enough at all. Yeah, we have a lot. We've roads to go.
Definitely.
That's something that I'm really passionate about, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that sounds like a little bit of a cliche, but it's actually true. Or it feels much harder to be it if you feel like you're the only one.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah.
And then on the other side, I always think of voices when it comes to news reporting. And, it, it would be great to hear a working class voice, for example, or an inner city voice on
Yeah.
radio as well. There is a particular tone to radio that lacks diversity, isn't there?
Yeah,
And
there is.
media.
Absolutely, and I agree to an extent. But then, like, we have Joe Duffy, and Joe
Yeah,
Duffy's been
true.
radio for decades, and Joe Duffy is from, I'm not sure exactly where Joe is from
Oh, I
originally.
am. No, I've forgotten.
I'm a North Sider, but
Yeah, definitely.
but yeah, you're right in that. Maybe there. I think that that probably speaks to a wider issue around the media and the type of people who get jobs. And we have more to do in that regard as well, to give opportunities to people who come from backgrounds that aren't necessarily, the obvious routes into those type of jobs. So the obvious junior cert, leaving cert, third level education, maybe even a master's, and then so, because that's one way to skin the cat, and that's not the only way. And I know people who didn't come at it that way, and they're brilliant. So I definitely think we as an industry have room to improve on that as well, for sure.
Definitely. What advice would you give to anyone who's listening and watching you today who thinks that they would love to pursue a job in the media? It's not get a degree in medicine and go and do work experience in a hospital, and if you're good, you get a job. It's a harder route than that, isn't
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say don't do it. No. Uh, it is a harder route, and I'm really conscious of that. That sort of my story is sort of, I got a part-time job in university, and in radio. Those type of jobs don't really exist anymore. There's more of a reliance on interning and things like that. But look, it's the best job in the world. And if that's what you're interested in doing, then go for it. Take the opportunities that you can. Listen. That's the most important quality of the job that I do, is, and sometimes I have to remind myself, because you're in the moment, and you're worried about, am I asking, is that the right question, is that light on right, is the microphone working? But like, listen to what someone's telling you. And so, in as much as you can practice that, or if you can keep that in mind, there's loads of opportunities in terms of local papers, local radios. If you're at university, there'll be all of those kind of the radio stations and the newspapers. Do it. I remember I probably didn't do enough of that in university. Maybe again, I was still a little bit kind of shy and a bit reserved. But if you can, try and take up those opportunities. It's a great job. It's not an easy job, and there's not a lot of opportunities at the moment. I know that. So, but if it's something that you're really interested in, it's the best job in the world.
Well, it was lovely to talk to you today, and best of luck with the rest of your time with Primetime. Is there anything you're looking forward to in particular this year, apart from a vaccine?
Uh, Covering stories that are not about COVID, um, because we know that's really important. But I mean, I'm not sure exactly when the conference is, but so around this time last year was when the general election was.
Mm-hmm.
I would have covered that. I would have been at one of the count centres, two of the count centres for 2 of the days. And those are the big days that, you know, you love when you're a journalist. These are the days that people are actively tuning in to find out, and it's your job to try and help them understand. And we haven't done any of that since then. You know, it's been really different. It's been all focused on, you know, this horrible pandemic and the horrible things that it's brought with it. So yeah, so, you know, going forward, would we like to get back to doing other stories? Absolutely. But for now, you know, we know that this is the most important story that will probably this is the most important story that I'll probably ever cover in my career. So I'm you know, it feels very important at the moment, and I feel very lucky to be able to do that with RTE right now. So yeah, the year ahead, we'll see the vaccines and maybe towards the end of the year, maybe some light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, fingers crossed. Well, thank you so much for talking to us for the
Thanks
Shine Festival today.
for having me. Very nice to talk to you.